Have you ever wondered if you should hire somebody that is more qualified than you or knows more than you and you're not quite certain if it's the right decision? We're breaking it down today on the Opt-In podcast. I am Melissa Franks, your host, and this is where we go from surviving to thriving in business. I have some energy around this topic today. The reason for that is because I was listening to a podcast this week and somebody was being interviewed on the Diary of the CEO. I'm not going to put them on blast right now. You can go find it if you want. And one of the questions that Stephen asked the guest was, do you think that small business owners should hire more experienced people to work in their business? This guest said no. In fact, this guest said, hell no. Not ever should they do that. Maybe once they get to 30, 40, or 50 million, they can start hiring people more senior and experienced than them. And I wanted to throw my phone because I could disagree with this so strongly and for so long that we don't have enough time on the podcast today. So today we're going to talk about hiring strategies for your small business and for your team and why it makes so much sense to hire people that are better at things than you. That's right. I'm going to argue the case that that's exactly what you want to do. As we all know, when we start in business, it's us. Unless you're a software as a service company where you need more skilled technical resources, generally speaking, the business is just you. Generally speaking, the business is just you until you get to $500,000 or $1 million, and then usually you're hiring arms and legs. You're hiring people to just take low-level administrative tasks off of your plate and to get things done. We know that this is the case. And often what happens is you accumulate more and more and more of them. And then at some point, your business gets to a certain size where you have a whole bunch of people, but you're like, I don't have anybody that can actually just take work and do. I just have a lot of people that can take direction and do. And this is where the conversation often arrives at our doorstep at On-Call COO, because business owners are coming forward and saying, I'm overwhelmed. I don't want to manage people. I have too much on my plate. Things are chaotic. I would just like somebody to be able to lead. Does any of this sound familiar to you? This happens in every single business at a certain point. It's different for every business because it's dependent upon volume, how much you sell, speed to market. There's a lot of components to that. Sooner or later, this point of friction will occur. You need somebody to manage the doers. It's just reality. Generally, that's also paired with, I need some sort of skilled expertise that I don't have. Again, every business is different, and that's because every business owner is strong and has expertise that's different from one another. Case in point, some business owners are amazing salespeople, and so they will never come forward and say, you know what I need somebody to help me with sales. What they will say is, I need somebody to help me run the business so I can sell more. For other business owners, they're amazing at marketing and social media, and so they don't need a CMO, but what they really need is somebody that can sit down and write processes and procedures because they're really creative and they don't really care how things are done. They just want them done the same way more than once. And so what they need when they get to that break point and overwhelm is always incredibly different. And as the conversation was unfolding on the Diary of the CEO, there was a whole bunch of other things I also did not agree with that we do not have time for today and is not about hiring. But when this conversation came up, I really do think that Stephen Bartlett was kind of like leading the horse to water. I've heard him say countless times that he is of the very firm position that the talent inside of your business will determine the growth trajectory of your business. I agree with him, by the way. I absolutely think that there's a correlation between the talent that you have in the business that you grow. Interestingly enough, another individual, Alex Hermosi, talks about the same thing. Alex often says that once you get to a place where you have enough funds to be able to invest in talent, take it all and bet it on black. Invest in the talent that has the skills that you don't have, that's more mature and more accomplished than you in the thing to help move your business forward. And when you bet it right, when you spend that money in the right place with the right expert, your business ultimately grows. Alex's position is that you have to pay high-priced wages for a player talent. I tend to agree with him. Those people that are excellent at what they do know their worth. And so they absolutely want to help you, and they are absolutely going to do it at the cost that is commensurate with their experience. And so you've got these two individuals that are highly successful, incredibly gifted at what they have been able to do and turn out into the world, both of the opinion that you should hire people that know more than you, that have experienced more than you, that can bring all of the tactics and the learnings and the lessons and the sage advice into your business to help you achieve your goals and dreams. And so all of a sudden, I'm faced with this podcast and this person who is saying the exact polar opposite. Now, her perspective was that you need to learn how to do it yourself before you can manage somebody that can do it instead of you. Now, at face value, I agree with this, but this is what people that have worked inside of corporations and grown up and climbed the ladder know that those that haven't don't. And that is that the higher you climb, the less you know how to do the work of those who report to you. I want to tell you a story. When I became COO, I was an operations wizard. I was highly skilled in all things that are labeled business operations. And I had spent a whole bunch of time in technology, so I knew a lot about tech. So it made sense that as a part of my COO title, I was also the CIO, Chief Information Officer, of the company. It made sense. What I also became responsible for was cybersecurity. I knew nothing about cybersecurity. The chief security officer reported to me. What I was also responsible for was procurement. I had never, ever worked with a procurement department in any capacity. I was also responsible for vendor management. Ditto. No freaking clue. And while I had operated and executed and been a stakeholder and a sponsor of projects, I had never run a project management office. I was not a certified project management professional, and yet the project management office reported to me as well. What ended up happening as the COO is I accumulated all of these disciplines that I tangentially knew information about. However, I did not have domain expertise. I did not have real life working experience. I didn't have any credentials to say that I was qualified to lead and manage these functions, and yet they were mine. So what did that mean? It meant that I had to trust the very skilled and expert professionals that were responsible for the various departments to do their job. And for a couple of those departments, I actually had to hire new leaders. Now, the question becomes, how do you hire a new leader if you don't understand what happens in the function? Well, you don't do it yourself. You ask other smart people. You ask the team itself to help you figure it out. You really, and I'll talk about hiring in a minute, you compel others to participate in the process so that you can get a solid view of the candidates in front of you and who is the right fit for the job. In every case, by the way, where I had to select a leader for a function that I did not understand what they did, I picked right. And the reason that I picked right was because I followed the right methodology and I hired people that knew more and were better than I was. Been there, done that talent. And I share this story specifically because there is this fallacy out there that you become an executive or a director or a C-suite officer because you have compelling mastery over a specific discipline and domain. And it's just bullshit. It just is. Often it has much more to do with relationships and experiences and networking and inside politics that get you to where you are. The reason that you stay where you have arrived is because you are a master at identifying talent, exploiting said talent to deliver the results necessary, and doing it in a way where everybody wins. And that's what I was incredibly good at. I had a 95% retention rate with all of my organizations. We promoted half of the staff within the 3 years that I had the organization. We were doing the dang thing because I understood how to harness the talent for the people smarter than I was across all of the disciplines to get them to deliver the results that were expected. So imagine my surprise when this woman who was on this incredibly massive platform is speaking vehemently that it's a bad idea to hire people more skilled, qualified, and experienced than you to do something. I was horrified. And I know that like my footprint here is not big and that I'm only going to go to a handful of all of you. But if I say nothing else in this podcast today, is you should always endeavor to surround yourself by people that know more than you, be it in your business or in your life. The only way that you learn, the only way that you grow, the only way that you are going to achieve your goals and dreams is to be surrounded by people that are going to offer differing perspectives, expertise, advice, counsel, so that you can determine what to take and what to leave and execute that in your life in order to achieve your goals. So should you hire somebody that knows more than you? Heck yes, you should. If you have identified that your business, social media presence, and a solid brand in the marketplace and you have no clue what to do, you know what you do? You hire a creative director, and you hire a creative director that has actually been a creative director. You hire somebody with a portfolio where you can look and touch and see and understand that they're going to be able to do what they did over there for you. You do not need to know how to do their job. You do not need to have done their job to be able to hire them and ensure that they are successful. It is dangerous if all you do is hire people that know less than you, because that means that the buck always stops with you. That means that your business, your growth is going to be limited by the information and the knowledge that you have. If you want to cap your growth, go ahead. That's the fastest way to do it. So 10 toes down. Hire people that know more than you. Seek counsel and advice from people that have been there farther than you. One of the reasons that On-Call COO has COOs in the team that have been COOs at corporations and businesses significantly larger than the small businesses that we help is because we want to ensure that when you are getting a COO from our team, that they have been there, they have done that, they have seen it before, and they can help. We are not in the business of hobbyists, and it's for a reason. It's because the small business world is a desert of expertise and knowledge. And so you should absolutely, as a small business owner, be seeking out the helpers, be finding the people that have the expertise and the knowledge. They're going to move the needle in your business. That college intern absolutely is not. So then, like, once you've hired the person, so let's say that like you bought in and you agree with me and you're hiring people that have more expertise than you and they're leading the business and you're doing all the things. You know what? Sometimes you hire people and they're just not a culture fit. And so one of the questions that's come up recently with a client is, I know that I need people with these skills that I don't have, and then I bring them in and then they're not working as fast as I want them to, or they're not delivering with the level of quality that I want, or they're not moving with speed, or they just don't understand that they need to represent the brand in a different way. And so our clients come forward and say, well, what do I do? How do I communicate this? And this is where, whether it's somebody that comes into the business and knows a heck of a lot more than you do, or it's a junior employee that's coming into the business that you know you're going to need to coach, mentor, and train, setting expectations is incredibly critical. When you set expectations, these are our core values for which all of your decision-making and actions must be aligned. These are our core values for which your public and personal persona must be aligned. This is how we communicate about timeliness. This is the level of quality for what we deliver. When you set expectations for every single person inside of the organization and hold them accountable to meeting those expectations, then you can quickly identify if you have hired somebody that is or isn't a match. And it allows you to have data and behavior-based conversations to determine if they can either make the leap or not. The biggest opportunity isn't so much that I hired somebody with the wrong skills, or I thought they had the skills that I needed, but then after evaluating it, they don't have it. It's generally not the root cause. What the root cause is that you weren't clear on your expectations and then you didn't follow through. I was having this conversation the other day. It was actually this is tangential, but I was having this conversation the other day at an interview that I was at, and we were talking about artificial intelligence. And I made this offhanded comment that it's basically like a 3-year-old. And what I mean by that is that you ask it a whole bunch of questions, you give it a whole bunch of work to do, and then you take what it gives you, and then often you go and do more work. You do more refinement, you put it in a different format, you take it as a starting basis and then do something else. But you never ever come back and close the loop and say, thank you for all of that information. This is what I actually did with it. And I want you to learn from my output, from my report, from my proposal, from my spreadsheet, from my whatever, how to do this for me in the future. Employees are exactly the same way. So when you give somebody an assignment and then it doesn't meet the mark, the quality's not there, they only did part of it, they missed the timeline, so you picked it up and did it for them. If you don't sweep back in and close the loop and communicate like, hey, I'm so glad that you did half of this. The challenge is that this whole thing needed to be done by the end of the day. And because you didn't get the whole thing done by the end of the day, these 15 things happen. So I want to show you what the outcome looks like. And I want to discuss with you how we can avoid having this be the situation in the future. You have to close the loop. If you have a situation where you give an employee an assignment and they just don't do it, you've got to close the loop. It's fine for you to pick up and do the work maybe because you have a deadline with the client and you have to give it to them. You have to turn it in, or maybe you have a deadline for some sort of publication and you just have to get it done. But you always have to come back and say, hey, I want to talk about what happened here. And I want us to both learn from this so that we can determine what to do. Again, did I give you an assignment that you weren't capable of doing? Did I ask you to do too much in too short of a time frame? Did you get sidetracked? Did you have competing priorities? Do you need help with time management? We make these assumptions about people because we don't have a conversation about the expectations that were set and how they were met or missed. And so before you say, oh, they're not a culture fit, or they're bad at their job, you have to ensure that you've gone through the due diligence. You have to ensure that you've actually gone through the steps to ensure that they have clarity about what's expected of them, and that when they don't meet the expectations, you have a conversation about what happened. It's really important when you are hiring people, when you're bringing them into the team, when you are introducing them to the fabric of the organization, that you think about and you consider the role that they are going to play in the entire ecosystem and how they're going to fit in. One of the things that happens often when we're making hiring decisions is that, do they have the skills that we need? Do they have the experience that we need? Are they going to accept the salary that we have available? Do they seem like a good human? Okay, let's hire them. And what doesn't happen is you don't actually spend time thinking about, based on everything that I know about this candidate and the role that they're going to be doing and the people that they're going to be needing to interact with, do they fit in? Are they going to level up the playing field? Are they going to make the team stronger and better? Are they going to add value to the business, or is there going to be some friction? Now, sometimes the answer is there's going to be some friction, and it's good friction. You want somebody that is a little bit different than the people that you have. I've talked previously on other podcasts about the power of diversity in your workforce. And so having somebody that's a little bit provocative, having somebody that will come in and challenge status quo, that is really, really good. It's healthy for your business. It gets you out of group think, and it really helps to propel the business in the appropriate directions. Now, with that said, you need to consider what that will do to the rest of the organization. When you hire somebody that could potentially be a little bit disruptive, initially, what you have to prepare for is decreased productivity and efficiency. You also have to prepare for people being a little bit unhappy and feedback. And that's called storming. It's a very typical thing that happens in business. There used to be this framework out there that nobody talks about anymore, and it goes storming, norming, forming, right? So like there's this big storm, everybody's fighting all of the time, and they start to figure out how to normalize their working relationships, and then they form this new organization that's highly productive, and they move forward. And so storming is natural, and it's going to happen to a certain extent with anybody that you add. But what you want to really sit back and say, when I bring this role in, when I change who's responsible for what, because ultimately when you're a small business and you're adding a role, you're taking a little bit from here and a little bit from there to create this new job. When I upset the ecosystem just by injecting somebody new, what's going to happen? What's the ripple going to be? Am I okay with it? Do I foresee any challenges? There was this one team many, many years ago, and the personality of the team was that everybody was very kind and was very careful with their word choice and their language. They even spoke relatively slow and even keeled. There was not a lot of energy amongst this team, and they had been together for a very long time. And one of the team members retired, which is what was happening in the company at the time, and so we needed to hire somebody new. And the decision was made that like some new blood and some new energy needed to come in to the fray. So somebody new and somebody highly energetic came in, and it was catastrophic. I don't have a better way to describe it. The energy in the room shifted. The existing team didn't know how to interact with somebody that was fired up and ready to go and wanted to move fast and take risks and break things and all, like, right? That was the energy that they came in. We had a steady Eddie, the tortoise and the hare kind of a situation, and it was a room full of tortoises, and they wanted to kick the hare out. And what ended up happening was that they iced out the new employee. So the existing employees kind of banded together, and they were like, we're going to keep all of the secrets and information. We're not going to be helpful. And what they actually ended up doing was making sure that person wasn't successful. What they actually ended up doing was making it so difficult for that person to achieve any results that the person left and gave a horrible exit interview. And the ramifications actually weren't so much to the team, it was to the team's manager. Because ultimately, the team manager is the one that made the decision to hire and then did not do anything to ensure that there was a good integration of the talent in the team. I share this story because it's incredibly possible that that candidate could have been successful in the organization. It's incredibly possible that that was actually the right hire, that in fact the snow globe needed to be given a really good shake, and the landscape needed to start to look different, and that the new ideas and energy were necessary for the growth of the organization. And what ended up happening is they became paralyzed and jaded and closed off, and that function of the business actually became more difficult for the rest of the business to work with because they were having all of this infighting going on. The manager actually ended up losing their job, eventually got what happens in corporate. They got promoted laterally into like some corner of a function where they could do no harm. And eventually that entire organization got disbanded and then put back together. And was it the right thing? I don't know. But the real issue was that we hired an amazing talent. That person was incredibly qualified. They just were not aligned to the ways of working of the team. And because the leader did not set expectations, because there was not a guided approach to integration across the organization, the whole freaking thing imploded. And this is what happens often in small business is you go out and you hire the A player and you don't really think about how the team is going to acclimate. And often this has been a team that's had a lot more responsibility than they should have based on the job that they have, because it's a small business and everybody does stuff and you just kind of pitch in. And as you get bigger, they lose accountability, they lose authority and autonomy, and they start to resent the people that are taking it from them. And so you've got to be really, really careful. Often we think that we made a bad decision, and it's not so much that we made a bad decision, it's that we did a bad job integrating them into the organization and ensuring everybody was going to be efficient and productive and successful, and the expectations were really, really clear. So as you are looking at your hiring landscape, one of the things that I tell you often is to hire at the bottom and work your way up. So I don't recommend that your first hire be a whole bunch of C-suite executives, because C-suite executives don't have anything to do if there's not a big team inside of your organization. I do not recommend even that you hire middle managers. The first roles that you hire are administrative in nature. They're task rabbits. They're people that you can give work to and they will get it done and it gets off your plate. And then as you have more and more of these task rabbits, eventually you need to hire somebody to manage them. And usually that person gets a function that they're responsible for. And then you do that again and again and again and over time. And so what your organization ends up looking like is that you are in charge and you have 1 or 2 middle managers and a whole bunch of people doing tasks. And it takes quite a long time and significantly more growth than you would think before you actually start to create this director level or executive level roles inside of your business. Because you have to remember that directors and executives, while they have a depth of expertise and talent, their job is to manage. Directors manage multiple functions, executives manage multiple departments, managers manage multiple people. And so if you start giving people those titles, the question becomes, what are they managing, what are they directing, and what are they executing? And if you can't answer those questions, because all of those people do that through other people, then it's not the right time for you to be hiring these middle management and executive level roles. Now, I strongly disagree with that episode of The Diary of the CEO that I was listening to this week. I got so mad I had to turn it off. I may finish listening to it, but it might take me a minute. It was thought-provoking in that everybody has a different perspective around how to approach these things. I just think that it's really dangerous if you are going to continue to be the smartest person in the room because you don't know everything. And the faster you realize that and the faster you can partner with people with complementary skills that have done more than you, the faster you will grow a stable, secure, long-term business. I hope that this podcast was helpful for you. I hope you enjoyed us talking a little bit about hiring and some things to consider. And until next time, friends, please know that you are wise and you are strong and you are capable, and I believe in you.